What if I told you that the way you think, the questions you ask, the logic you use, the values you hold, were shaped by a handful of people who lived 2,500 years ago? Men who dared to question everything, including the gods, nature, politics, and the meaning of life. In this documentary, we journey into the birthplace of philosophy, ancient Greece. A land of mountains, myths, and ideas so bold that they redefined what it means to be human. Imagine a world where natural disasters were blamed on gods, where kings ruled by divine right, and where stories replaced science. Then suddenly, a new voice emerged. What if we search for reason, not myth? What if the world can be explained through logic? What if every belief must be questioned? These questions sparked a revolution of thought, one that launched science, ethics, politics, geometry, and the very concept of truth. To understand how philosophy was born, we must first understand Greece itself. Unlike Egypt or Mesopotamia, Greece was not a unified empire. It was a collection of independent city-states, Athens, Sparta, Corinth, Miletus, Thebes, each with unique cultures and rivalries. This competitive environment encouraged debate, innovation, and new ways of thinking. With limited fertile land, Greeks turned outward, trading across the Mediterranean, borrowing ideas from Egypt and Babylon, and blending them with their own curiosity. But something else mattered even more. Greek culture valued dialogue. In marketplaces, streets, and symposia, drinking gatherings, people debated politics, poetry, economics, and war. This culture of open conversation fueled intellectual growth. By the 7th and 6th centuries BCE, the first philosophers emerged in Ionia, along the coast of modern Turkey. These were the Pre-Socratics, men like Thales, Anaximander, and Heraclitus, who asked questions no one had asked before. What is the universe made of? What controls change? What is the truth beneath appearances? This chapter sets the stage. But what comes next is the turning point, the moment when philosophy shifted from studying the cosmos to studying the human soul. If you enjoy deep dive history content, subscribe for weekly documentaries. Long before Socrates walked through Athens or Plato wrote his dialogues, a quiet intellectual revolution was brewing along the Ionian coast. The pre-Socratic philosophers sought to explain the world through natural causes, not myths. Thales, often called the first philosopher, proposed that everything came from one unifying substance, water. Anaximander suggested a more abstract idea, the boundless and infinite source behind all existence. Anaximenes argued for air as the primary element. These may sound simple, but they were profoundly revolutionary. For the first time, humans tried to understand nature without invoking divine intervention. They used observation, reasoning, and debate, early forms of the scientific method. Heraclitus believed the universe is in constant flux, famously stating, "You cannot step into the same river twice." Parmenides challenged him, arguing that change is an illusion and reality is one unchanging whole. This intellectual conflict, change versus permanence, still shapes philosophy today. Meanwhile, Pythagoras blended numbers, music, mathematics, and spirituality. His secretive community believed numbers governed the universe, influencing everything from architecture to astronomy. The Pre-Socratics laid the foundation for rational inquiry. But the true explosion of philosophical thought happened in Athens, fueled by politics, war, democracy, and a radical new thinker, Socrates. This is the climax of the story, the golden age of Greek philosophy. The Peloponnesian War had shaken Athens. Political instability, weakened leadership, and social unrest created fertile ground for new ideas. And into this turbulence stepped a man who changed everything, Socrates. Socrates left no written works. We know him through his students, most notably, Plato. His method was disarmingly simple. Ask questions. Challenge assumptions. Force people to confront contradictions in their beliefs. This became known as the Socratic method, still used in classrooms, courtrooms, and universities today. Socrates believed that true wisdom came from recognizing your own ignorance. But his relentless questioning angered the powerful, and he was eventually sentenced to death. His execution marks one of the most dramatic moments in intellectual history. After Socrates' death, Plato founded the academy, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Plato explored justice, politics, metaphysics, and the nature of reality. His famous allegory of the cave revealed how humans often mistake illusions for truth. Plato's student, Aristotle, took a different approach. He was empirical, studying biology, physics, ethics, logic, and politics. Aristotle founded the Lyceum and wrote extensively, shaping nearly every discipline we know today. Together, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle formed a triad of genius that defined Western thought. Why Greece? Why did this tiny, fragmented region produce ideas that would shape the world? Several factors aligned. Geography, a mountain separated cities, encouraging independent thinking. Trade, exposure to multiple cultures sparked curiosity. Politics, Athens' democracy encouraged debate and public discourse. Language, Greek was precise, expressive, and ideal for abstract ideas. Competition, rival city-states pushed each other intellectually. But the most important factor was cultural. Greeks believed humans could understand the world through reason, not myth alone. This shift from supernatural explanations to rational inquiry was a philosophical earthquake. It gave rise to ethics, science, mathematics, political theory, and metaphysics. This chapter explores how these ideas spread throughout the Mediterranean and influenced Rome, Christianity, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, and modern education. Why does Greek philosophy still matter? Because it shaped how we think, learn, and question. Socrates taught us to challenge assumptions. Plato taught us to search for deeper truth. Aristotle taught us to observe the world carefully and reason through evidence. Their ideas built the foundation for modern science, logic and reasoning, ethics and political philosophy, education systems, Western democracy, psychology and metaphysics. We still ask their questions today. What is justice? What is the good life? What is real? How should society be organized? As we end this documentary, consider this. You are part of a tradition that began in the streets of Athens, under open skies, as curious thinkers debated the meaning of life. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe for more weekly history deep dives.